for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Welcome, everyone, to the School Food Share and Donations webinar. This webinar is put on by the K-12 Technical Council of the California Research Association, CRRA. I'm Debbie. I am a school recycling coordinator for the Carton Council and chair of the K-12 Technical Council. The goal of the Technical Council is to have a productive webinar once a month and sustainability issues that are of interest to schools. We love to get suggestions on what you would want to hear and what makes your work easier, so feel free to send those to us. I think you've all received an email either from me or from Bob, but please send us any ideas you have for topics you want us to cover. There's no cost at all to belong to the CRA K-12 Technical Council or to participate in our webinars. Our speaker today is Nancy Deming, who is the Sustainability Manager for Custodial Services with the Oakland Unified School District. Nancy has been with Oakland USD for almost 5 years. Her passion, focus, and energy are concentrated with schools on finding ways to make an environmental difference for our schools and their communities through waste and resource reduction and sorting programs. In addition to working with Oakland USD, she also works with schools and school districts in 2 other counties in the Bay Area on their waste reduction programs. Nancy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Debbie. So my position is fairly unique. It's actually housed between custodial services and nutrition services. It originally was custodial services, and then as I was working programs in the cafeteria with sorting, just seeing a lot of the issues that were coming from the kitchen. So services department, very innovative and progressive, so the position became shared. So it was grant funded. It was a contract position for 3.5 years, and that worked great to get things going, but it definitely was tedious. So the all was set in motion for it to become a district staff position so that it would be more invested from the district's perspective in both departments. That did take a little bit of time, 3/4 of a year, but it got back into place, which I feel very fortunate to have gotten back this past February. With the budget funding issues for the district, the position is 60%. So my over full-time, but working my other 2 contract positions, everything kind of evens out and a lot of best practices shared. But it definitely makes it a little challenging on trying to figure out how to do things as effectively as possible. The work can still happen, and then hopefully other districts can learn from it as far as not maybe having a full-time position. So with issues with the cafeteria and kitchens, you know, serving large quantities of food, the federal meal requirements and eating time, there's definitely always an inevitable surplus of food. With Oakland Unified, we're making a lot of changes to improve the menu, such as California Thursdays, so that's a significant investment, let alone an improvement to the food. So we don't want to, you know, it's one thing to compost the food, but we certainly don't want to send it straight from the kitchen to the cafeteria to the compost or landfill. We want our community to be able to have this surplus food that's still edible. So this is one of our elementary schools, and you see that the food share is the first in the line for students to drop off any of their unwanted food. So then we've got some other examples of food share. So the idea is that the students put any of their items that they don't plan on eating that they had to take or that they did take, and students can choose from these items during the mealtime, which sometimes at some schools it can be a pretty busy spot. This is a middle school pictured on the right, where a lot of food is selected just from the food share itself. Our district does allow for our kitchen staff to go out to the food share to select items that can be repurposed. So for our district, we allow anything that's shelf stable, not hot or cold. So any of the whole fruit, any of the dry packaged goods that are still sealed, the kitchen manager can bring those back and repurpose them. So then once things are sorted, then there's the issue on what to do at the end of the meal service from what the kitchen manager can take back. Ideally, the material that's on the left, the kitchen manager would open up all those and get it into the compost bin, but that is so demoralizing on that sorting, let alone the time that it takes. So typically that would just get dumped into the landfill bin. The picture on the right, that was going into a compost bin, but it's definitely a disturbing shot given that it's apples and milk. This is perfectly edible food that could be donated. There's recent reports as far as with 40% from farm to fork that our edible food is being wasted. We definitely don't want to be a part of that, and we know that we've got edible surplus food from our schools, from the cafeteria and the kitchen, that we want to figure out ways to donate it. For Alameda County, the county that Oakland sits in, 1 out of 6 is food insecure. So this one site that this milk and apples are in, you look down the street and there's a community food bank that happens once a week. Lines of people that are hungry that would readily take this surplus food from the school. So to be able to do this, right, then we want to make sure that it's legal, and it's definitely legal. This question comes up a lot. There's a lot of wrong information that's out there. But so in 1996, President Clinton passed the bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Act. It encourages companies and organizations to donate healthy food that would otherwise go to waste. So this law protects businesses from liability when they donate to a nonprofit organization. It also protects the businesses from civil and criminal liability should the product donated in good faith later cause harm to the recipient. So one of the concerns from schools and school districts is that this food is coming from the federal meal program. It's federally funded. So there was a question about, can that food be donated? So in 2011, Congress amended the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act, which is also known as the School Food Recovery Act, to outline specifically that schools and local education agencies that participate in the school lunch are authorized to donate the surplus food that they have. So they're kind of reinforcing the Good Samaritan Food Act, emphasizing that they definitely also don't want to see the food going to waste when it should be donated. So to get to the procedures for food donation, we were fortunate on the timing that we were awarded a grant from Stock Waste, which is our local waste authority that we partner heavily with. We applied for a grant to support us in getting a food donation program that could be implemented, that could be district-wide. So we partnered as well with another local nonprofit, Food Shift. So between the 3 entities, getting a plan set up for a food donation program that can be replicated at a number of schools. So this is all the items that are from the food share, and then plus any items that are in the kitchen that haven't been served. And it can also include items from cooking kitchens that they just aren't able to make use of. A lot of times the donation can increase for sites if there's field trips that aren't known about, and they have 60 pizzas set up for a couple classrooms, or the standard overages, or if something's about to expire, then those can get added into the food donation. So with these pictures here on this slide, the top one on the left, we've got a kitchen manager, and so she's packaging up all the food that she has left over from that meal that's in the kitchen. So it's cooking kitchen, so she's packaging it up. And we had an arrangement with this nonprofit that was picking up to replace those containers, kind of it cycled through. So they took the containers with the food, served them to their community that they serve, and then brought the containers back clean, and then they would get filled up again. So we had a number of those for each of the school sites that picked up that way. And then there can be some sorting that happens behind the scenes as far as things that can be redeemed and not, which is the picture on the right. And then through the food recovery grant that we got with Stop Waste, it provided funding for us to get dedicated refrigerators. So that's a couple parents where they were doing the Food for Families model, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The industrial refrigerators, when it's coming from the district for nutrition services, it has to be an industrial refrigerator, and that can be a costly investment. They cost about $1,200. If it's a nonprofit coming in to assist, or parents that are assisting, they can bring in a regular refrigerator, but sometimes those can be a little problematic on the space, but it can work for some situations. We did originally, our first 2 pilot sites, we did buy freezers, thinking that we wanted to get the food really cold and allow folks time to get that food home or to the nonprofit agency. But the feedback that we got from the parents was that some of the items didn't thaw out well for them to use them in their best state, in particular to the milk. They said that that would be only good for baking. So then we switched back into the refrigerators moving forward. So we set up 2 options, food for families and food for community partners. So the food for families, it takes a couple dedicated parents to manage to where they would need to hold the distribution days, you know, prepping the food, getting the word out there to the school community, and then doing the distribution, managing the handing out of the food. And then the other choice is food for community partners, where we find a local nonprofit that can do routine pickups. The picture on the right, this one's pretty compelling. So they service folks who have recently just gotten out of incarceration or like a drug alcohol rehab program, and they're helping folks to get back on their feet and get a job. So they feed their clients. Anything that's left over, they go to a local park that's by their agency and hand out the food directly one-to-one to the homeless that are in that park. So there's definitely no surplus food with that organization, which is fabulous. So with being able to do this, it definitely takes a village. So like I said, we've got Stop Waste, our waste authority that assists in great ways, technical plus funding, plus a variety of other folks that have contributed technical support, and then also funding to go towards refrigeration. So with our first year pilot, we definitely wanted to recognize all the school sites with the kitchen managers and the schools themselves for participating. Recognition definitely goes a long way. They were all very appreciative, tears in the eyes on handing these out, just being so thrilled on participating in the first place and then being recognized. And sometimes these positions, they don't get very much recognition, so this goes a long way in recognizing their extra efforts. So with our first year pilot, so this represents the start of 3 schools for the beginning of the school year, and then about midway February or so, then we got it up to 11 sites by the end of June. So this doesn't even represent 11 sites for 1 full year. So the potential is even greater for that 10,000 pounds of food. And with the information that we got from the parents from our first 2 pilot schools, that milk was such a key ingredient, the key donation item, it's nice to see that 57% of our donated food is milk. So it's a sought after item. It's definitely a staple item that serves well to the community. The other thing that I always remind folks on is that once you set up the food share in the cafeteria and then the food donation, is that that surplus amount of food will most likely decrease some just because of the eye on it. The food donation, we do require kitchen staff to fill out a tracking form, so that puts an extra eye on, you know, what they're ordering, what they're serving, how things are doing, what's going out to the food share, what's going to food donation, to where those numbers can be adjusted over time to where the surplus food most likely will decrease, but it's still inevitable just given the issues as far as fruits and vegetables that are required to take, that sort of thing. So for us to do this, we've always needed them to be having our district documents that aligned with the kind of the legal issues. So the original documents for the first couple sites that we had prior to getting a district-wide plan going was naming individual school sites, and that is definitely a very tedious way, because with getting it approved by legal and then it going to board, sometimes this could take up to over half a year, if not a little bit longer. So that picture on the right, definitely I can feel that several times with, you know, just trying to get everything written up, approved by the different entities that have got to get circulated through. Worst case scenario is when a nonprofit declines. So one of my first sites that I was trying to get set up, a nonprofit said that they would take a number of school sites, got everything in order, took half a year getting the board docs approved, and then the day before the food donation was going to start, the nonprofit had to back out. So that was a lot of work just getting all those documents set up. So that wasn't a great model. So then the next one was with the grant funding and the pilot project that we had with Stop Waste and our other nonprofit, where a single nonprofit is named. And that's a pretty good model. That just means less paperwork having to go through, and then keeping the back of the house documents filed that that nonprofit would oversee. But with our example, our nonprofit that we partnered with, Food Shift, after that 1-year pilot, they needed to back out. They needed to not continue, so then that meant we had to kind of start from scratch again. And we were very fortunate to find out about LA Unified School District's food donation program and the documents they had, so we modeled pretty closely from what they've got to where their board docs just say the nonprofit, the contractor, and we'll do X, Y, and Z. And then it's between the food service department to make up individual contracts in the departments. That turnaround can be less than 2 weeks within the department. So we're moving forward with that model. We just recently got our documents approved by our legal department. So we'll be ramping things back up to the school sites that had participated. And then we've included a parent MOU so that we can do the food for families. And this is something kind of unique, and it's specific to each district to see what they want to do, but Oakland Unified chose to recognize parents as nonprofits in their very entity. If reading the legal documents from the USDA, they do mention a 501(c), but we know these parents are handing the food out. They're not making a profit off of it. They are nonprofits on their very entity. So Oakland Unified recognizes it that way. LA Unified recognizes it that way. There are ways to get around it to where you could contract with an organization like Food Bus or a local church to identify an official 501(c) nonprofit. So there's options that folks can choose to, depending upon what's going to work best for their own school district. So we are tackling other things as well to try to reduce our food waste. So with water stations, it is known that, setting up water stations, less milk is chosen. So that's a good thing. We do try to get the milk selection awareness out there as much as possible, reminding staff and teachers and principals that they shouldn't require students to take a milk. We have signage that goes up with the milk crates. Take one if you plan on drinking it. Kitchen monitoring, cafeteria monitoring. Just somebody standing there kind of reminding a student to go back to finish their apple that they're eating, making sure that they're getting the item into the food share. That can help in a lot of ways. We do training and symposiums for nutrition services and custodial services, letting folks know about the issues at hand and things that we're setting in place that they can manage and oversee at their schools. And then the next big thing that we've got on our plate is trying to figure out a plate waste study and a regular kind of daily tracking that would be from kind of an intent study, plus then a daily tracking that kitchen staff can be going out and checking in the bins to monitor how the food's going. So what's next? So our food share tables are at, I don't know, maybe a little over half of our schools. That's kind of official with the sign and a bin, but we definitely want to have that where it's district-wide. A lot of times the school might say, well, we have a food share, but it's a table off to the corner and there's no sign, there's no bin, and there could be a pair. And then you look into the waste cans and you see a lot of pairs, to where having something that is more official and the students and the staff know about. Like I said, getting our food donation ramped back up. Another pilot that we're going to do to kind of tackle, so we've got 85 schools. So to try to get this district-wide and meet the needs and the flow and the surplus, the quantity at our food at our schools, we're going to be piloting a warehouse pickup system where our refrigerated trucks with their drivers, when they go out to school sites, they drop off food, well then they pick up the surplus food that that site has and bring it back to our warehouse. And then a single nonprofit would pick up, from several school sites just at the warehouse site. So we're going to start that in a couple of months. I'm looking forward to that. And especially to get some of our school sites that might have lower volume, and something that we can get so that we're district-wide sooner, saving that food. And then if there's a school that's interested in doing the food for families, great. We can take them off the warehouse, pick up. Or if there's a local nonprofit, great. We switch gears, but the goal is to try to save the food as soon as we can. Another new ruling that our district is considering what we want to do on is that for California, the fruits and vegetables with the time constraints and with the time that it can take to eat the carrots and the apples, they're allowing for items to be taken out of the cafeteria. So it could be, the bag of baby carrots or that apple. But this is one of those things where having both departments, custodial staff plus food service staff, and any of the cafeteria monitors all on board to knowing how that looks. And definitely custodial services backing that and supporting it, because it will impact the playground and the classrooms when the food's going out. So on wrapping some of the things up, so with stock waste, we have almost finished a food donation implementation guide that should be ready hopefully in a couple of months. And that definitely gives all these best practices and the forms, the resources that are all listed in there, that you're welcome to contact me and we can put you on the list to get that guide when it comes out. I do have a food share set up, one-pager that I can share, as well as the California approving the food share and the consumption out of the cafeteria for the fruits and vegetables. I can share if anybody wants those links. as well as the department system documents, the legal documents. I can share those as well. There are tons of additional resources that are out there. There will be a resource section in the upcoming guide, but I'm happy to share out in the meantime if anybody is wanting supporting information now. Just a few of them that you can go to is the USDA and the EPA. They have a few different presentations online, plus a lot of supporting information on their websites. University of Arkansas, they made a great one-pager that highlights all the legal bullet points that are called out. Another great resource, which I just can't get enough of, is called Just Eat It. It's a video. It is just recently available on demand through Amazon. I purchased the rights to the video so that I could take clips of it, and then I've been sharing it out to our food service and custodial services staff to educate them on a lot of the issues. There's an organization in Indiana called Food Rescue, and they've got a great YouTube video. So there's a lot of information to support the effort for food share and food donation. If anybody has any additional questions or thoughts, please let me know. Less recreating the wheel. You know, some of this has been a bit painful, so I certainly don't want anybody to have to relive these lessons, and especially to move along smoother and faster. So happy to share. So with that, I take it over to Debbie, and we can put some.
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. It was really, really helpful information. I wanted to touch on a couple of things. Last week, I met with Rod Cordova at City of Thousand Oaks, and just so I think all the photos that Nancy just showed focused on the food that was coming out of the school cafeteria, but Rod did a study of waste audit of school food and was shocked at how much food not only was coming from kids who brought packed lunches from their parents. It was just amazing. And some of that absolutely could not be donated, like the sandwich in the baggie. But a lot of it was completely sealed up food, like your Go-Gurts and applesauce with the lid intact, beverages from home, still in completely sealed cartons. And that food also could have found its way through to donation instead of to the trash. So it's not just a food problem coming out of the kitchens, but also what parents are sending with the school with their students who have no idea that their children don't even eat the lunch. They just take their lunch straight to the trash and throw it away. Rod had some really, really compelling pictures on that. Real quickly, this presentation is being recorded, and it will be posted on the CRA K-12 Technical Council website. And I'm hoping that we can get Nancy all the references that Nancy just talked about, that we can get those posted on the website as well. We're really trying to build that as a resource. It's under development. But that website is www.k12recycling.org. But again, if you know anyone who was interested in this topic and couldn't sit in, or you want to refresh yourself on any of her slides, please bookmark that website. And again, www.k12recycling.org. I'm going to turn over to some of the questions. I think I answered one of them right off the bat, which was raised, can you make the PowerPoints available? This was a good question. This is from Jesse Teeger, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is recycling coordinator in Dublin. He says I work with schools to set up food waste recycling programs. Some schools have refused to set aside unused food and milk because they are afraid that a kid may have touched peanuts and that the oil residue might get on a milk carton, etc., and set off a serious food reaction in a kid who took the item to eat. How do you address this concern? Is the answer to only donate to local nonprofits? Nancy, has that come up for you?
No, the main concern that's come up is from parents on, okay, it's grilled cheese sandwich day, and their child had the grilled cheese and then took one out of food share and not eating a balanced lunch. But the food share and the food donation outweighing, that idea of the student eating, and I've definitely seen that where they've taken too many Teddy Graham packages But with the monitoring at the stations, that can be remedied pretty quickly. But with the food allergies, Oakland on peanut free, so we don't have that issue. But that's
a lot of schools are peanut free. You're absolutely right. So that could be the way to go. It's just you're peanut free, so none of the items have that. But I guess what you're saying, Jesse, is that somebody who had peanut butter might touch one of the cartons. I don't know. If anybody else has an answer to that question, type it in the questions box, and hopefully we can address it. There's a question from San Diego on why do we even still have milk at school instead of water? Do you know if it's going to change soon? Milk has been part of the school lunch program since 1940. I don't expect it to change much. I think Nancy's slide touched on it, though, that you can, by setting up water stations and signage, like if you're not going to take a milk, please don't, if you're not going to drink one, please don't take one, that kind of a thing. But I don't see milk coming out of schools anywhere in the near future. Do you want to add to that at all, Nancy?
No, yeah, agree. It's inevitable. It's just part of that package.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of this National School Lunch Program. And just real quickly, some of you may not know, I mean, that National School Lunch Program started a long, long time ago because our population was not fit for military service. That is the origins of the National School Lunch Program. Our population was malnourished, and that's the beginning. Now, of course, unfortunately, the flip side is that a lot of our population is not overnourished, but obese. And so we're on the flip side of that and trying to make healthy school lunches and balanced school lunches. So what it started were malnourished, and now we have a completely different population. But the National School Lunch Program isn't going to go anywhere. It is trying to get healthier, and I really appreciate everyone who's trying to divert the school food from the trash into people who really could use that food. One more question. It's the primary obstacle for schools and nonprofit food distributors is transportation. Is there effort being made to help coordinate transport of food or a transport network? Nancy, do you know anything about that?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're going to pilot our refrigerated trucks to, run efficiently. If they're going out to schools to drop off food, then we pick it up, and then it's from a central pickup spot for a nonprofit to get there. San Francisco's got an organization called Food Runners, where it's, that's what they base themselves on. They've got a refrigerated trucks, and they go around to different organizations picking up their surplus food. Refrigerator trucks are costly, so that's an issue in itself. So that's where we also try to partner with a nonprofit agency that's as close as possible to the school itself. Or, better yet, that the school can manage the food for families to where then that way there is no transportation required because the parents would already be there picking up their child, plus then they can pick up surplus food.
Do you know of any national groups or even statewide groups? I think at the last CRA conference I met somebody from a group called Food Shift. Are they trying at all to get school food, to create a network for school food?
So Food Shift was who we partnered with for the first year on our pilot,
okay.
But they don't have a refrigerator truck. They don't have the capacity to run that way. They are setting up one of those funding type things to get folks to donate so that they could do a county kitchen that surplus food would get to that could be dropped off, and then they turn these things into meals to serve people. Yeah, so they don't have the capacity to do the pickups.
Got it. So right now it's still just finding a local nonprofit, someone who can, there's no national group that's really taken this on.
Well, there's Food Bus, but her model is to help schools set up a food donation program, but it's a matter of kind of managing that piece. The same kind of the Food for Families are partnering with the nonprofit to pick it up, but it doesn't manage the transportation of the food. Contacting the local food bank is a great way to kind of find out folks that are out there. We're considering partnering with one organization that serves elderly that are in need of food, and so they do regular pickups and deliveries in our city. So we're trying to navigate, okay, when you're doing those, then you could come and pick up our food that we have from our warehouse, and then it's already in their regular route, so it's not any extra work on their half, and then they can get it to their clients or to the nonprofits that are just down the street for any surplus that they would have.
Okay. Question, what district staff monitored your food share tables? Are they food service staff or parent lunch monitors?
Are you still there?
I'm still here. Other people are dropping off, but we're still hanging in there.
Okay. And yeah, so it's a little bit of above. It varies depending upon the cafeteria. So it could be the custodian, it could be the kitchen manager, cafeteria monitor. It just depends upon the system that's in cafeteria. I would say predominantly an adult cafeteria monitor and the custodian that's typical. There's a few where the kitchen manager is able to kind of get out there and monitor it. We're checking between, you know, the shifts of lunch coming through.
Okay. Another one for you. We were directed by our local health department to remove our share baskets. Has your health department supported your program?
Well, food share is allowed from the state's perspective. Our county does know that we have a food share and that we're doing this food donation program, and we're meeting their requirements. For the food donation, each county does have to contact their individual health departments to determine exactly what can be donated, because that can vary a little bit. There's some counties I know nationwide where they don't allow hot food. So you got to adjust the food donation accordingly. Ours does allow it as long as it's not considered, you know, open, contaminated, sitting out too long, that sort of thing.
Right. So somebody wants to know, did you measure the, sorry, lost this question here. I'm not being able to read that full question, sorry. Someone lost the audio when you explained it. Can you clarify food for families versus food for communities process? Parents are acting as nonprofits and coordinating food deliveries independently with outside families and organizations? Question mark.
So the food for families, we work with the school identifying a couple parent leads, especially if a school has a parent liaison position, and then they oversee the food for families. So the kitchen manager still collects and tracks the food, gets it into the dedicated refrigerator, and then it goes over to the parent team to where then they distribute the food on, their distribution system that they've got. So that way the food is going out to the students' families. Then the food for community partners is where we partner with a local nonprofit to the school, to where that nonprofit comes and picks up on a regular basis the surplus food.
Okay, I found that question. Did you measure the impact on hauling services?
No, and that was a question as far as that could have an impact, but with all varying entities and the waste that goes into the dumpsters, it's a little tricky to quantify on that actual amount that would actually hit the dumpster. We're only talking few cubic feet worth of material per day on the average, so it wouldn't change that much for schools once you get the program going.
So would you say this is more, I mean, obviously it's waste reduction, but it's really a bigger item. It's like making sure food that's edible goes to people who can eat it rather than the trash. It's a little bit different than just reducing waste.
Right, you're doing the right thing. right? We have this incredible resource of this edible food, and a lot goes into behind it to create this food that we want to make sure that our community has access to it. We know that there's community members that are in need that can use the food, let alone, anybody would, how often folks use all the different fruits and vegetables and milk that we serve. Right, so it's a good thing. From a systematic point of view, so the food share and the sorting system in the cafeteria is definitely a roadblock at the end of that meal service, is about what was going to be left done to do with all that surplus food that's in the food share. Well, in my mind, everybody's going to sort it out, get it into the recycling, compost, landfill, sort it. Practicality, that time is not there, so it would have to be landfilled. So that means we're doing an environmental disservice on just landfilling it versus separating it. But if you have the food donation, then it goes to serve the right purpose for what that food was intended for. And just that more, it's very demoralizing when you're having to toss away edible food, the milk, the fruit, and then you go out down the street and you see somebody who's hungry.
Right.
We've got to balance things out.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of work in both fields of food service and school food service and community recycling, and I think from both perspectives, we all agree that just watching this edible food go into the trash is wrong. It just should be alternatives to this. And that's why I appreciate you sharing the program. Couple more questions. So when someone's know if serving milk is mandatory, it's not mandatory that students if they're part of the federal school lunch program, they have to take a specific number of components of what makes up that school lunch. So they have grains, they have proteins, they have fruits and vegetables, and then they have dairy. It varies by how it's structured at schools, but I think, Nancy, you can help me up. I think they have to take 3 of those components, and milk is one of the easiest things to grab.
Right. And a lot of times it's encouraged by staff, teachers, principals, because they are hoping that the student's going to drink some of the milk for that instant protein. But oftentimes they don't drink it, or they think that they're supposed to take it, or they just take one of everything and then put all those items onto the food share.
Right. And so it is part of the National School Lunch Program that they have to take certain portion sizes and components. And some schools have just been putting all of those components on a tray for so long. That's how they think it is. And there are options there are choices within those components that students can make. But again, they're trying to move these lines as fast as they can to get these kids fed. So there's not a lot of, take your time and pick what you want. It's like, get it on your tray.
Right. Are you going to drink that milk? Right. Why don't you put it back? Yeah, there's not time for that one-on-one typically.
No,
yes, as long as they have the 3 items, all right, move along.
Exactly. It's how it is in a school lunch program. I think, Nancy, you mentioned that 40% of edible food in Oakland is wasted. What is the most immediate goal for redistribution of school food?
So that 40% is national and global. So that's a issue that we have that's much grander than our individual cities or school districts. What was the second part of that question? What is the most immediate goal for the redistribution of school food? Finding homes for it, figuring out, especially for us having 85 schools, different setups in the schools, cooking kitchens and satellite schools that have higher meal participation, lower meal participation, trying to find the different methods that can be worked that can be so that we can have this district-wide, so schools can kind of choose different options, so like the food for families or food community partners, and then doing the warehouse piece, just finding ways to secure that food, and then it's not a one-size-fits-all type plan. So we're still trying to, map and figure it out and pilot things. If anybody has any ideas, great. Would love to hear them. Yeah.
I have one more question, and I think we'll probably wrap this up. But do you have the program in place for your breakfast in the classroom, or what about other school meal programs like supper or snack? Because schools are serving many more meals than lunch nowadays.
So when we piloted the program, out of the 2 first schools, one of them did have breakfast in the classroom, and it was an elementary school. So and that was one of the reasons why that school site was chosen, because breakfast in the classroom has a much higher return quantity on surplus food. We wanted to try and capture that quickly by getting them onto the pilot program. So that worked well. We learned a lot from LA Unified, who bases their model for their breakfast in the classroom program that they have, that is pretty much based, their food donation program is based to capture that breakfast in the classroom surplus. Our school district doesn't. We have a few schools that have breakfast in the classroom, but we've kind of we've monitored the quantities that go out to the classroom to reduce the amount on the surplus that would be there, kind of understanding what the students are choosing. And actually one of the schools that we have on now, it's elementary to middle school. So they have breakfast in the classroom, and that is a site that has the food donation program that goes to community partners. So the food donation works well for that.
Great, thank you. We have one more announcement, then we'll let you all get off the phone here. I want to thank Nancy very much for the information. Again, the whole entire presentation will be on the K-12 Technical Council website. We also want to let you know that registration is open for Keep California Beautiful's K through 12 Recycling Challenge. That's a competition that takes place in March year. It's a really friendly competition with cash prizes for winning schools. I particularly love this competition. Conducted on a per capita basis, which means that a small school has as much opportunity to win as a large school. You have on your screen right now, you should see their website, and you'll see on the left-hand side, it says registration open. They're going to be having 4 webinars to talk about the program in December and January. So we would love for you to promote this to any of your community people who are interested, any of the school districts in your regions. An individual school can enter, an entire school district can enter. There are cash prizes, I think totaling $16,000, I think, available. And again, the competition is not until March, but you can use that time between now and then to learn about the competition and to get your community excited about the competition. So again, thank you all so much for the webinar. If you have any ideas for other webinars that you would like to see or hear about through the CRA K-12 Council, please let us know. This topic was a result of someone sending it in, and I really do appreciate you joining us all. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.